Welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere with your host, Chris Parker.
And welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere. This is Chris Parker, and today I'm with Max Zang. And Max is a student and an entrepreneur currently based in Boston, but has very international roots. I ran into Max through the exponential community around the world of exponential thinkers and doers. And he has recently participated in the Boston EXO internship program, which I'm sure we'll talk about because I'm so jealous. If I was able to do such a thing when I was in university, wow. So I'm speaking here from a position of jealousy. So Max, welcome to the conversation. Can you please share with people, Max, what is it that you do and why do you do what you do?
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for the introduction. And I'm obviously super thankful and honored to be part of this conversation and this program, share my story with you and others. And for what it is that I do, I'm currently a student in university. I'm studying at Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a finance and entrepreneurship major here, and I'm originally from Santiago, Chile. I have roots from Argentina through my parents and obviously all around the world. And I moved to the States about 8-9 years ago. I actually can't believe it's been so long. And I guess tangential to my studies, I'd like to think of myself kind of as an innovator, problem solver, and entrepreneur at heart at the end of the day. And nowadays, you can kind of catch me and see me juggling with lots of different projects, initiatives, and I guess trying to get involved in my community. And if I had to pinpoint why, I guess it is that when I do those things, it comes down to maybe the way my brain works. I'm just, and I guess, very curious. And I always think how tasks could be maybe made easier, or problems could be solved, or how could lives be changed for the better. And I'm motivated by the challenge to get those things done and to jump through hurdles and get everything that I need to do to make a real impact.
Outstanding. And where I imagine a lot of people, also young people, feel that things can be different or better. However, you seem to have found a energy or a motivation to actually do it. So where did that momentum come from? That ability to act, as opposed to maybe so many of your peers and my peers when I was your age that like to talk a lot and do a little?
So that's a really good question. And I guess it kind of has part to do with the way I was raised. Like, always my parents making and doing things and always teaching me how to do better and how to act better and how to always put my money where my mouth is. And I obviously think a lot of ideas, but the most powerful thing is to kind of go and speak those things into reality. And watching them do things as I grew up for myself or for others around our community just kind of impacted me in a way that, wow, this is really cool. I like what I see, and I kind of want to get in and do some of that for myself.
Nice. And we've mentioned a couple times the word community. And one of the things that you did earlier in your career, which I thought was pretty incredible, if I can find it here, was you co-founded a community tutoring service or platform. Tell me about that tutoring enterprise that you have sprung out of nothing.
Yeah. So kind of in the whole theme of community, when I moved to the States, I realized that my learning kind of was stunted to a point that I needed help from others and around my community to kind of help me. And obviously that helped me get to where I am today. And I realized that for others who might not necessarily have the same opportunities or maybe the same connections to people in their local communities, they should also kind of be, or at least strive to find some sort of program that cuts the accessibility or the financial barriers to help and support in their academic studies. Mm-hmm. And basically through my experience and how lucky I found myself to be that I had those experiences, I thought, well, other people should have them too, and they should be awarded these opportunities. And other people kind of thought about it a similar way and kind of liked the idea of where the project was going and tagged along and helped create this movement, I'd say, of, and now you can see many other services kind of springing up through that community back home in Miami. And I'm really glad that we started something that made an impact.
Nice. What was the first entrepreneurial activity that you were involved in? If you think back, the first time that you, I heard somewhere, it's not my own quote, that every entrepreneur is a little bit crazy because they have to look at how things are and believe, hey, that sucks and it can be better and I'm going to make it better. So there's a little bit of nutty in every entrepreneur, which is wonderful. When did you first start your crazy activities of in the entrepreneurial space?
So if I had to, I guess my first entrepreneurial activity came in the apparel industry or kind of merchandising. I'd always had this idea before coming to the US that schools and things like that where everybody wore the same school spirited t-shirts or the same hoodies or sweatshirts or tracksuits and whatnot, and everybody was connected through one thing through their school. And I kind of saw that link kind of missing in my school. We did have some sort of merchandising, but people weren't brought together by it. And that was just something that I had envisioned. I was like, no, it has to be this way. I saw it like this. And I thought, well, if something's going to connect everybody, it's going to be something that everybody can wear and they can show. So I guess my first venture entrepreneurial activity was kind of building up this way of people to just kind of be connected through something similar that they own, some similar sweatshirt, something that they really loved. And I obviously, interestingly enough, and kind of how it's mentioned around that entrepreneurs wear many different hats, that was the first time that I really understood what wearing different hats meant. I not only had to come up with some sort of idea, but then I'd had to sell these. I'd have to kind of create and design them. I'd have to find where I was going to make them. I'd have to do all these sort of things that I never imagined. And I feel like that's what catalyzed everything else that came.
Cool. And I'm curious, part of the entrepreneurial journey is failure. In that early venture, is there anything that went gloriously wrong that you learned a lot from?
I definitely say that I learned a lot of things. I'd like to think that nothing went gloriously south, but we did have a lot of bumps in the road, especially with things that I just would have never even imagined, as to how somebody might not want to maybe pay for something, or how somebody might consider a certain design maybe offensive even and that taught me more than the specific things to merchandising and that specific industry. It taught me I have to look at everything from everyone's point of view. I can't just think that everybody thinks like myself. And I guess it taught me that at the end of the day, yes, I'm going to be the person with these ideas and I may think that they're great, but I have to validate what I'm thinking. And that might have costed me a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money, even maybe, when I realized that your customer, the validation that they provide is the most important thing.
Amen to that. And the fact that you're learning this while you're still in university is an incredible gift. It's taken me many more years to stop building before you sell it or before you validate it. What's your favorite way of validating with customers? If you have an idea or a product concept before you're even MVP, what's your favorite way of engaging the audience?
My favorite way, and I'd say that's something that I like to do regardless, because I come up with crazy ideas sometimes. I get told by my roommates who I speak about everything with. And I kind of like to engage in conversations and just be like, hey, like, what are some of the problems you're having? And just kind of get to the deeper why and why it is that they're moved. And just kind of go and kind of work things out with them. Kind of like if it was a teacher working out a math problem with a student, they don't kind of just show them the answer. I don't want to show the answer to people. I want to kind of work them out with them and just kind of get on the whiteboard and start writing down equations or whatnot and just kind of break it down until we get to a final answer. And then we're both comfortable with that. And kind of getting that feedback from others and just circling ideas around. I've found that it's extremely helpful, sometimes with my peers or sometimes with professionals, or sometimes with people that completely dislike the idea and just want to completely shut it down, to kind of get some middle ground. I love doing that, and I find that it's also effective.
Cool. And you're also involved in some other stuff. There's a future business leaders through Phi Beta Lambda. I guess that's a professional university, right? I don't think it's not a social fraternity.
No, that's a high school and
Okay,
collegiate level club.
cool.
So that basically in school, kind of after my whole merchandising and in the middle of my other projects, I decided that I wanted to get the people in school engaged and I wanted to help them stay motivated. And I also realized that my school definitely lacked some business classes. So bringing in professionals that might teach the maybe older kids that were getting towards 18 and were working, like how to maybe file their taxes or maybe how to apply for jobs, and getting people who have been there and done that is definitely a way that I love to learn, just learning from others that have done things. And I thought that other people would appreciate it too. So we kind of took over this club and turned it into a very learning through doing and learning through action doing new things. And we also did competitions for Shark Tank pitches of ideas that people had and just got the community involved in certain things. And people love it. And the club is still there today. And if you go back, they're probably still doing the same things that I kind of set up. So that's awesome to see when I kind of go back to high school. And it's also cool to see that it's also after high school, there's more things that you can get involved in that are similar. In school here, I'm involved in various different clubs and activities that kind of shape the way that I think and how I interact with others and kind of throw and bounce ideas around. So I'm thankful for those opportunities too.
Yeah, learning is something that and curiosity are significant themes I've picked up in this conversation and also our previous conversations. And podcasts are something that you shared that you consume feverishly, and for at least daily, I think you said. How do podcasts contribute to your self these days, and what are one or two of your favorite podcasts that you would recommend to people?
So I definitely, kind of how I mentioned before, I love this idea of talking with others and hearing others' ideas to just bounce around my head. And when it came time to just wanting to learn and learn more and learn as I go, and just maybe as I'm walking to class or while I'm walking maybe to the supermarket to buy some groceries, I stumbled upon this podcast, How I Built This with Guy Raz, that now it's become basically an addiction. I'd have to say I can't stop listening to podcasts with founders, and it just gets my gears turning and my brain thinking of how it is that these people have achieved what they have achieved and what were the hurdles that they had to step through and what were the learning outcomes that they had through their experiences. And that kind of teaches me as I listen. And I feel like a podcast is a very good way to also it engages me because I'm listening to them. It's like if they were talking to me. I can't ask any questions, but the mediator does a very good job at keeping the conversation going and alive. And like you mentioned, it became a daily routine for me. So now I make it a daily goal to at least 20 to 30 minutes. I'm always listening to new podcasts and new ideas and just getting those in my head and just turning gears at the end of the day.
Nice. And this is the first podcast that you've been on this side of the microphone. How's this going for you so far?
So it's definitely interesting now that you mentioned that, because I've been in a habit of listening, but I've never been in the other position. I've never been thrown in the other seat. So it's eccentric. It's entertaining to be able to share your story, and it's my hope that people can take advantage of some of the things that I've learned and just kind of get inspired, maybe to do things from a young age or to do things in their community that make a real impact.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, before we're done, I would like to, dig a little into your ambitions for the future and maybe how you see the future. But before we get to that, Exponential.
Yeah.
EXO, Exponential Organizations. You're foundation certified at openexo.com. You are a successful intern and have gone through the 10-week EXO sprint with mentors from Boston EXO. How did you get introduced to the crazy world of exponential thinking and exponential organizations? And and what made you decide to, dedicate a summer of your life to that whole community of craziness?
Great question. And I definitely, it's kind of like one of those stories. It's like I never saw it coming. Obviously, through this pandemic, plans got shifted, and then I was introduced to this community that my mom, Karina, had been a part of for a very long time. And as I was hearing about the things that she was participating in, she was participating in challenges and hackathons, and I would just listen in and kind of love to see where she was kind of taking teams as she was a mentor. And then one day I kind of sat down with her and I was like, what is it that you do? I mean, what is it that this exponential organizations community is? And I truly learned like the value in this huge community that I'm sure you also know about. You're a part of it. And I kind of got intrigued. And then I followed up with Eric and Eric Patel from Boston EXO, who was from there. And then I was intrigued. I wanted to learn more about a different way of thinking, a different way of doing things, and a different way of engaging with the community. And I dedicated my summer through their internship program, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. It was amazing to see the effort and time that the mentors and everybody that was part of the community put into my development and to helping me just brainstorm my own ideas or ideas for their business, and how receptive they were. It was definitely an incredible experience to work with such a small company, but that's also part of a bigger goal. And definitely being introduced to all these new topics all at once in the beginning was very interesting to kind of learn and take a step back and kind of read books about it, read articles of what it truly was like and what makes an exponential organization. And now, having gone through it and internalizing, I'm curious to see how these exponential technologies and organizations of the future are kind of going to be shaped on new ideals and on new phenomenon, that I'm glad that I kind of have a grasp on that, so I can get on to building things like that will end up having an impact.
I'm really curious what you build. And can you maybe for the people listening who are not familiar with EXO and the open EXO space, or maybe they haven't read the books, what is an EXO in your words?
An exponential organization, or an EXO, is a company that is doing things 10 times faster and 10 times better, and not necessarily because they're 10 times larger or have 10 times more money. It's because they realize and they leverage exponential technologies that have the power to take you from one place to the next. And they learn how to harness those and use certain exponential organizations attributes that are kind of going to rocket launch your company or your organization into thinking differently and into kind of doing things a slightly different way that motivates the people around them and strives them for success, because they're very focused on their end goal or their massively transformative purpose, as we call it, the MTP.
Nice. And so you brought up the MTP. The next question is, what is your MTP?
So I've been through many iterations of my MTP, but I've always liked to think of my MTP as something very concise, as to just make a change. And it's not that I want to make a change, or it's not that somebody should make a change. I like the make a change because inspiring others to make a change is also very rewarding and very useful. And making a change in your community and just being engaged in it are so many aspects that are required to make a change. And while it might not be as flashy or as exciting, it motivates me to just kind of every day when I wake up, how am I going to make this change? So I've stuck with that for now.
Nice. And cool. And it is a moving target. I think an MTP, maybe with some organizations, it stays fixed at a certain point, but my personal purpose or mission early on was to help people succeed. That was sort of what I came out, maybe from university. And then through pain and suffering, I realized I cannot be responsible for the success of others. And so for me, I orient more on, I create experiences that enable growth with people and the businesses they run. And this podcast is in service to that, basically just sharing and connecting and spreading, news and inspirational people like yourself. So cool. There's 10 attributes of an EXO. And for anyone who is interested in all this, I'll put the link to openexo.com, and you can get the foundations course there for free and go through an online course and get certified. That's all free, as the mission there is to just inspire people to think more abundantly. So what is of those attributes, what's an attribute or two that really excites you, that is something that you think is super powerful, that people could maybe consider adopting, in their own business?
So definitely one that can relate to, and I think almost everyone, is the attribute of autonomy. I've gone through and worked at many different places and had the opportunity to work at larger firms and also Boston EXO, which is a very small firm. So having the opportunity to be autonomous and be able to make change the way you see fit, and being able to interact with your work in a way where you see fit, obviously adapting to your goals and kind of catering to where you want to go. But the essence of autonomy, I feel like, is more of you're empowering the people underneath you, or you're empowering the people who work with you and for you to kind of be inspired themselves and help also inspire you. Because at the end of the day, it is likely that those people are going to have great ideas. And if I had never gotten the opportunity to be able to speak up and kind of say those ideas to the world, I would have maybe never gotten the opportunity to put those on paper and make those into a reality. So I'm a strong proponent and believer that everybody has it in them, and sometimes they just need that extra push.
Yeah. Again, incredibly powerful, and there is what we talk about in the exponential community, the mindset of scarcity and abundance. And if you are perhaps more scarcity oriented and perhaps more command and control and top down and instructive as a leader or a manager, with as opposed to more of an abundance thinker where creating possibilities and creating space. Oftentimes I when I'm doing executive roles, I really see myself as creating this space for others to do their job better than I could ever do. And it's a different way of looking at things, certainly professionally, and it's not always culturally accepted. So, regarding MTP and autonomy and the other attributes, you spent the summer working through an EXO sprint, which is a 10-week, pretty intensive, structured process outlined in Exponential Transformations, the book. What was the initiative that you guys were working on, and how did you learn about autonomy during that whole journey? Tell me a bit about your summer story.
So I guess in the beginning of this sprint, it kind of all started with getting situated and me being introduced to what an exponential organization is and how they run and function and what makes them be able to do those things, such as attributes and technologies that they leverage. And then as we kind of got more comfortable with those things and tried to, I guess, leverage them ourselves and kind of pitch our own ideas to what we think Boston EXO or the community should be focusing on, we kind of kept on coming back to this idea that everybody at the end of the day should have this clear exponential mindset. And it's not only going to help companies and build successful exponential ones, but it's also going to help people in their own life and people who are looking to get into the workforce, people who are doers and looking to do things. Like myself, I've definitely been able to, after my internship, kind of come back, reevaluate the projects and all the initiatives I've been working on, and kind of use autonomy as an example to motivate the people that work with me or that work in the projects that I'm working on, kind of relate this back to them. But kind of going back to Boston EXO and my time there, during the sprint, we came up with the initiative that consulting or just teaching and training shouldn't only be catered towards companies. And we had this vision that there should be an exponential training for individuals, and kind of how were we going to mold this typical and consulting and how we see it with big firms, and how we're going to bring the smaller ones and more nichely targeted towards individuals who wanted to learn more and who wanted to just be engaged in their community. And we worked on throughout the 10 weeks on what the best way of putting this initiative together, we landed on a mobile app that would have a bunch of different features, and hopefully that's gonna currently be worked on. And I look forward to kind of going back with Boston EXO in the coming weeks or months and kind of working with them to see how we can achieve this goal that we came up with through the sprint.
Lovely. Again, it was exciting to hear about it. And Ebullient, my company, is a partner of Boston EXO, and Eric and his whole team, which is continuing to expand. And your mother Karina is involved. Yeah. It's almost a community of communities that is just working to make the world a better place. Again, the link to Boston EXO and the internship I'll put in the show notes, and that's at ebullient.com/podcast/Max Zang. Let's look at the future for a bit. So one question I have is you're from a different generation than I am, obviously, based on the color of my beard. How do you feel about the future, and how do you feel you can influence it personally and professionally?
I'd like to think that I'm hopeful. I'm inspired every day by the things that people do, and I don't think that culture is going to stop anytime soon. I think as we become more advanced, some people might question, every idea has been taken up or everything has already been done. And I kind of think about it the other way. Every day that we go through and every idea that gets done kind of opens up two more possibilities. So I'm hopeful to see where my studies and in finance and in entrepreneurship and in those sectors kind of take me and mold me into like a creative thinker. And just I'm always focused on what the different things that people are doing around me and how maybe 2 and 2 can go together, or how new things can come up. And I guess more on the side of where I see the future going, I definitely see more collaboration happening and more people coming together to their ideas. I definitely think that the days of 1 or 2 people coming together maybe in their garage and building something, maybe those days are behind us, and the days that are kind of in front of us are communities coming together to build better communities and to help each other out.
Yeah, I can imagine that as well. I think, the world is becoming a smaller place, through the technologies and social technologies. And, the fact that we're able to do this, me, coming, in from the Netherlands near Amsterdam, and you in Boston, originally from Chile, is incredible. Just the fact that that's even possible is mind-boggling, and just, it's a gorgeous world that we live in so many ways. What role do you want to play? So what's your big, hairy, audacious goal for yourself? What's the dream of Max Zang, on top of the Wall Street Journal? Max has done it again. What are you going to be busy with?
That's definitely a very interesting question. And sometimes I change my answer every 2-3 minutes, but kind of relating back to my MTP and just relating back to my roots. Like I came from a different place, and I'm kind of here now and seeing all these resources and all these opportunities. Not only do I want to make sure that I'm making the best impact for everyone else, but I want to make sure that other people know what exists out there. I kind of speak back to my colleagues that have stayed back in South America and haven't had opportunities to learn about all these new things. And I'm thankful at first that I've had these opportunities, but then I'm also thinking, and I'm also always kind of my gears turning as to how can we get them involved, because everybody at the end of the day has something to give. And if I had to say one headline for the Wall Street Journal, wow, I don't know, really. I think it's more about the impact a certain project could create more than the headline itself. Yeah, obviously, everybody loves to say that I wish I was on the cover every single day. I wish I was being looked at, or my projects were being noticed more. But at the end of the day, that's not what counts for me.
Beautiful. Well, Max, thank you so much. Before we wrap up, is there any question for me that you'd like to throw back, or that's a little bit of an off script question? Didn't prepare you for that one.
Yeah.
Is there? Yeah.
I guess it's interesting because you've obviously never, or I guess from this podcast, kind of speaking to a different generation, kind of what are the things that you have learned, I guess, from talking to all these older people? What is it maybe that they've wished that they knew when they were here to kind of get to the impactful place that they are today?
Well, I haven't been asking that question specifically, and I've been purposefully going as wide and as broad from the different definitions of diversity as possible. So, for example, one podcast that's coming up for publication, and by the time this is published, it might already be done, out there, is Gift Lubele, who is a young man. I think he's 24 or something, from South Africa. And he created a digital platform for informal trash pickers. So these are typically middle-aged ladies who go around early in the morning just sifting and sorting and looking for valuable, and by valuable, I'm talking like a tin can valuable, in the trash of the community, and then bringing it forward. And it's just a hugely inefficient system. And because it's also cash-based, it can be dangerous, etc. And he is just solving that problem, which is absolutely beautiful. So I am purposely seeking people who are different than me, like yourself and like Gift, in order for me to learn. And because if I I'm not sure if I could find someone else like me, American-born, European living accountant technology type. Who knows? There might be one or two out there. I hope not. The world can only handle one. Some key thoughts is the most profound realization that I've had after, I think this is 57 or 58 that I've recorded, is that the people that seem to be most successful, and that doesn't mean necessarily financially, but really comfortable and satisfied with their situation, are not busy selling to people. They're busy doing and following their passion and following their bliss, and have over time connected their passion with what people value, and seem to be purposefully allowing people to buy when it makes sense. And it really flies in the face of everything I learned in, going through B school and getting my MBA and going through corporate world, where marketing is basically, attracting people who don't want to be attracted to things they don't want. So for me, the things that's been really refreshingly, profound is that. And also another thing that has come up a number of times, and this is also part of my journey, call it personal power or personal connectedness, is the people that I'm really going, wow, this person's got it going on. Invariably, they mention meditation somewhere in their conversation as a daily practice. And that's reaffirming to me, because that's something that, last year I took meditation courses, and I really try to hold myself accountable. I did it this morning. I, just sat down on my mat and listened to my 15-minute meditation, and purposely did that before I was overwhelmed with the obligations and expectations of the outside world. And so that's also really reaffirming to me as well. So it's, and every conversation is different. The people who are not seeking to be famous for their entrepreneurial efforts also oftentimes have really just jewels of insights that maybe they didn't initially realize. So, and also, of course, the expert entrepreneurs, of course, also have insights. So they're two different conversations as well. So it's fascinating. So, and I'm hoping people who listen also appreciate that and are learning from it, because it really is everyday entrepreneurs everywhere. And like yourself, in university, going exponential with your thinking and doing and building communities. I'm just so thankful that I had you on the podcast, Max. Thank you for the question. So if people would like to get in touch with Max, he's on LinkedIn and Instagram. So Max Zang, just exactly as it's pronounced. And if you go to ebullient.com/podcast/Max Zang, you will find his bio, links to Boston EXO, Open EXO. I'll find a link to how I built this podcast. And great. Max, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Learn more at ebillion.com/podcast.